Despite the success of its predecessor, the Gossip Girl reboot was plagued with troubles from the start. From having a super costly budget for a poorly written plot to completely losing that original Gossip Girl vibe, here are all the reasons why the Gossip Girl reboot got cancelled. So Upper East Siders, I'm sorry, but Season 2 of the Gossip Girl reboot on HBO Max was the last. This is the latest show on the platform to be cancelled, and even though it's part of a worrying trend, it's not totally unfair, and let me tell you why. In January of 2023, Gossip Girl's producer, Joshua Safran, posted the news on Twitter and said that the show was looking for a new home. This isn't impossible, since Minx, another HBO Max original, was recently dropped and then picked up by Starz. But it seems unlikely, because the reboot of Gossip Girl tried to do way too much, and that made it end up being boring, which is the worst thing a teen soap can do. The original Gossip Girl wasn't exactly the best show on TV. I'm talking about the CW one from 2007 to 2012. But the reboot seems to completely miss the point of what made it so interesting, which is especially strange since Safran worked on the first show. There are, of course, some good things about Gossip Girl. There's a diverse cast of characters, well-placed and expensive needle drops from Frank Ocean to Beyoncé, costumes that are mostly in line with current fashions, clever episode titles in the style of the original, and Kristen Bell's return as the voice of Gossip Girl. But Gossip Girl's big budget can't compensate for its boring plot lines, cringeworthy Gen Z conversations, and half-hearted attempts to talk about important social problems. The thing is, the Max original also made the mistake of putting too much attention on Julian Calloway, who's played by Jordan Alexander, at the cost of other characters like Monet DeHaan, acted by Savannah Smith, and Luna La, by Zion Moreno. Julian goes from being a shaky leader in the first season to a near villain in the second. She finds new and creative ways to mess up her friends' lives and relationships, and then wonders why they don't want to be her friend anymore. And you know, it gets annoying to see Julian use and abuse her younger half-sister, Zoya Lott, who Whitney Peak plays, and to see Zoya forgive her, and to see the same thing happen over and over again. Then there are other characters like Audrey Hope, Aki Menzies, and Max Wolf, who all have the same kind of relationship with each other. When Audrey and Aki decide to get together with Max and make a couple, their worries about publicizing their unusual relationship really slow down their story. Look, I know teen shows aren't usually known for having great acting, but the new Gossip Girl's acting is just exceptionally bad. There are a few good performances, sure, like Savannah Smith as the Queen Bee Monet, and Thomas Doherty's vague Chuck Bass version as Max, but most of the group is pretty wooden. As Monet's cruel parents, Amanda Warren and Rick Worthy, draw the most attention as part of the DeHaan family. Focusing on Monet and even her friend Luna instead of Julian, that would have made the show much more interesting to watch, since she acts like Blair Waldorf, who was one of the most interesting characters in the original Gossip Girl. But the idea behind the original show was interesting, because Gossip Girl's real name was never revealed until the end of the show, after 6 seasons of building up to it. And the fact that Dan Humphrey, who Penn Bagley plays, turns out to be behind Gossip Girl, and the whole time it not making any sense, has been talked about to death. But the reboot took away all of the mystery. In the new Gossip Girl, the pilot shows that a group of teachers at Constance Billard made the Instagram account Gossip Girl to make students and their parents answer for their actions. You see, this takes away from the show's surprise, because now viewers can't guess who Gossip Girl really is. Instead, they have to wonder when the teachers behind Gossip Girl will be found out, especially since they don't do a very good job of hiding it. It also makes the teachers seem like sociopaths, especially Kate Keller, who plays Tavi Gevinson. She gets carried away with how much power she has running that Instagram page. They follow their students, write about their relationships and lives, and find more and more strange ways to end up at the events their rich students go to, which is where some of the most public drama happens. Also, the emotion wasn't used to its fullest. I mean, the reboot came out in 2021, a bad year with a pandemic, rising living costs, and Boris Johnson. And personally speaking, I just wanted to escape into a familiar, silly world with characters we all knew and loved. And let's be honest, when most Gossip Girl fans heard the word reboot, they hoped to see Serena walking her kids to school, Nate running for office, and Chuck's dad bod. Just think of all the other remakes that have come out in the past few years, like Gilmore Girls, Sex and the City, and Top Gun. They all have a lot of throwbacks and don't mind bringing back old cast members. The audience wanted to watch something familiar on TV, but the new show didn't give us what Gossip Girl fans were looking for. And what about the new people? The whole Max, Audrey, Aki love triangle was nothing compared to Chuck and Blair, which was a grand will they or won't they love story in the original one. No one cared as much about their lives. Maybe it was the lack of witty, meme-worthy lines that brought the original characters to life. Like, once men have tasted caviar, I don't understand why they settle for catfish. Or maybe they weren't given enough time to grow, because the show was trying to deal with such heavy topics, like cancel culture, gun violence, and prescription drug abuse. These were all important problems that were only touched on briefly. Nothing got as much attention as it should have, including the people. Even though the second season was more interesting overall, the penultimate episode shows some of the show's biggest flaws. Zoya's dad suddenly has enough money to open his own law firm. Julian uses Zoya and betrays Audrey and her boyfriends. Kate becomes even more power-hungry, and a funny showdown happens when Julian, using wireless headphones, listens in on a phone call between Camille and Gossip Girl, which was Kate with her voice disguised. While the three of them stand within earshot of each other, Zoya says, "Let's kill Gossip Girl" at the end of the episode, which is almost too obvious, given that the show is ending. The thing is, in 2007, when the first episode of Gossip Girl aired, social media meant changing the background on your MySpace page and posting blurry photos to Facebook. Blogging was still pretty new to most news outlets, so the idea behind the first show, with so many socialites, felt new and exciting. And while the fascination with the 1% hasn't gone away, the idea of Gossip Girl as just another online troll isn't as interesting. And following Julian, who's just the latest in a long line of nepotism babies, she doesn't have the same appeal when our feeds are already full of the details of influencers' lives. It wasn't as dark as Euphoria or as sweet as Emily in Paris, but it was still a good way to escape. There were some brilliant parts of the show. Still, most of them had to do with fashion, like the Christopher John Rogers runway. Julian and Zoya dressing up as Chuck Bass and Dan Humphrey for a Halloween party, and Monet's moving belt of cult accessories. I also have to admit that I watched all the episodes in a few days. But will I want to watch it again and again, like I did the first time? Most likely not. Gossip Girl on HBO Max might be so bad it's good, but it's always a shame to see a show get canceled too soon. Anyways, this is why Gossip Girl got canceled after just 2 seasons.